Love your music selection, Keith. I am live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 18th Annual Damn Short Film Festival. These are our live Q&A broadcasts out of our fabulous office. We're trying to name it something cute, but we haven't really come up with anything yet. I have to say that this is actually one of my favorite aspects of the virtual film festival is being able to do these Q&As with you guys from all over the country. I am happy to introduce Documentaries C and D. We have Curious Pursuits and the World Around Us. Hello, everybody. Oh, the screen looks different this time, Keith. You're confusing me. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm the rule breaker of the group, so I'm never centered and I'm never paying attention properly. So, hi, guys. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to go around the square here and have you introduce yourself, the film, and your role in the film. So, I'm going to start with Jamie here.
Hi, my name is Jamie Wright, and I was the director and cinematographer and editor of Everything in Hardware.
Fabulous. And Shauna.
Hi, I'm Shauna, and I'm the director and producer for World Building.
And Ted.
Hi, I'm Ted Grodowski, and I was a producer, director, and the editor for This Land is Part of Us.
Fabulous. And welcome you guys. And quickly, where are you guys tuning in from? Jamie?
I'm in New York City right now, in Queens.
In Queens. Hi. Shauna?
I'm actually out of town. I'm not at home. I'm in an Airbnb somewhere. So I'm in Central Time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Ted?
I'm in Seattle.
Seattle. Oh my gosh, great. We're national. I just finished up the international. I had some UK and New Zealand and all over the place. So this is really exciting. So thank you for being here. Just a little background on myself. I am an absolute filmmaker novice. So I kind of ask different questions than I think some of the other board members do. And I'm always very curious about how you came to make a documentary, what the difference is from producing and creating and directing a documentary versus a drama or a different genre, and how you came to that, and a previous experience if this is your first documentary. That was a lot of questions. So Jamie, I'll let you get started with how you came to be on a documentary.
Yeah, well, I work primarily as a video editor, mainly, narratives, documentaries, music videos, everything like that. And the project was brought to me by the subject of my documentary, John Binley, who's a singer-songwriter from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Used to be a solo artist, but he had recently started this band called Binley Hardware Company, which was the name of an actual hardware company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that his ancestors started like 100 years ago during the Industrial Revolution. And he just wanted to make like, a 5-10 minute YouTube video, kind of like a promo about the band. I'm John Binley. This is my band. Guess what? It's a real thing. Started by my ancestors. And so it just sort of started like that. He had always sort of heard stories about, the genesis of the Binley Hardware Company from like his grandmother, like you're related to this guy that, ran a hardware company like 100 years ago. And John had kind of recently started to do his own research on it, and kind of had found some old hardware catalogs and some other artifacts and pieces of ephemera from the hardware company, like old meat cleavers and straight razors and things like that the hardware company had sold. And so it was just supposed to be like a 5-minute YouTube video with like a little bit about the history of the the actual Binley Hardware Company. And I wanted some pictures of the Binleys, like from back in the day. So I went to the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, and there's a book called like Important Men in Pittsburgh or something like that. Pittsburgh, being the center of the Industrial Revolution, was sort of like a hub of a lot of stuff going on. It was sort of like the Silicon Valley of its day. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Pittsburgh. And yeah, I just sort of fell down the rabbit hole and kind of ended up learning more and more about the Binley Hardware Company and John Binley and his sons and his father and all sorts of stuff like that. And John kept on finding more pieces of ephemera, different hardware catalogs, letters John Binley had written. And then we found out about some other Binley landmarks that had sort of, turned into other things. The Binleys had like a mansion in Florida that is now a Catholic girls' boarding school, and like a warehouse in Pittsburgh that's now an apartment building. And so, some themes started presenting themselves to us. So we became clear, to me at least, before long, that this was a larger project. We should make a short film out of it. And that's sort of how the genesis of this film.
So you didn't set out to make a documentary. The documentary found you.
No, I definitely love documentaries. I've worked on a few as an editor in the past, and that's what I sort of concentrated on in college. So I was kind of looking for a documentary, and it's sort of, this opportunity presented itself to me. And, it's just supposed to be a YouTube video. So I kind of one-man banded the whole thing, which was not the best idea, but, it worked out. So
it did indeed. Shauna, how'd you come to the documentary world?
Oh, I don't know. I got dragged into it, I guess. I relate a lot to what you were saying, Jamie. There's a lot of similarities there. Kind of the more you discover a topic, the more it expands, the more interesting it becomes, the more you want to portray all those interesting connections. And the same was true for my piece, at least. It's basically my documentary is about fictional worlds, the worlds that young people imagine, and then the worlds that authors write about in their novels, and the overlap between that, the creative process, how it's similar, how it's different, the content, what the content is like, how it's similar and different. So I'm a writer myself. I have a background writing. But so I feel like I had a lot of inspiration and a lot of wanting to portray these things in a way that was meaningful and gave some depth to it as well. So, but I've always been obsessed with stories. Both my parents were in the industry, so it kind of felt feasible to me, where I think a lot of people typically would think, don't waste your time. And I relate to that as well. But yeah, I just it was definitely a passion project.
Had you had a history with documentaries before? This one?
I have a master's degree in multimedia journalism from the University of Oregon. So yeah, but this is probably because I had the idea in 2020. I had to also, like Jamie said, one-man band it a lot. So most of the stuff I had to just kind of figure out, okay, you know, people don't want to interview in person. How are we going to figure that out? There were just a lot of obstacles that I had to kind of work through. But yeah, this is the longest one-man banded project I've ever done, and I hope that I ever will do again.
And Ted?
Well, I came into making documentary films through my interest in conservation and nature. Here in Washington, we have 3 national parks and a lot of national forests and a lot of public land that gets a lot of love. But there's a lot of issues in that too. So I have been working. I'm a freelance videographer as well. So I've been working with some conservation groups that work in the region in the Pacific Northwest here on various issues. And a few years back, I had a half-hour documentary, Cascade Crossroads, which played here at the Damn Short Film Festival in this time in 2019. So stemming from that, the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife invited me to create a video for them on the shrub steppe habitat, which lies between the Cascade Mountains and the eastern portion of the state, where Spokane is. I'm in the western part where Seattle is, and there's this big territory in between, the Columbia River Plateau, that to most people is kind of drive-through country, but is really, really very rich. So they needed a video, and I love that area. It's an area I go in the spring when it's gloomy here in Seattle. Still, I can go out there and it's warmer and sunnier. So I was already very familiar with it, and so it was a natural extension for me to do that video. I had to do a lot of one-man band myself, so it's a common theme here. I was fortunate to have my colleague Darren Gunkel also work with me on scripting and producing. So the two of us together made this film. But like the others in 2020, this was supposed to be a small, short, video. Due to the pandemic just delaying everything, and it just kind of stretched it all out, and so it ended up being a year-long project, and we decided to go for the longer format of it and really tell the full story as best we could.
So I'm curious, again, I have zero film background. I watch films, and I'm passionate about talking to the filmmakers and learning a lot about the behind the scenes work. So it seems to me that some of the other filmmakers that I was interviewing earlier from, in the drama series, it's a very different technical process for you guys. So the 3 of you have one-man banded it here. Obviously, these other films had, a lot of moving parts to it. Is that because of the behind-the-scenes editing, or the, finding all the video and the pieces? I mean, the videography, Ted, I'm curious, did you do a lot of that yourself, or do you go out and find, video that's accessible and then you piece it all together?
Well, I did do a lot of it, and I need to clarify that we did have a production team. So we did have, a handful of really great producers, very passionate people from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as Conservation Northwest, which is a conservation group here that I've been doing work with for years, and so they partnered up. So I was not entirely alone, but I did most of the filming. There was some is stock. Other footage was contributed by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, things that their field researchers and biologists have collected. One of the biologists in our production team, his daughter filmed a couple of the shots. This elusive burrowing owl that would never make an appearance when I happened to be there with my camera, but she was there. So there's a collection of it, and just from various years of me just going out and recreating out in those areas. So.
And Shauna, like you said, you had to figure out how to navigate in the COVID world with, doing Zoom. We all zoomed into everything. So talk a little bit about that technical process. And again, I have zero understanding, and so I'll probably use the wrong terminology, but the editing and the process technically, how that worked for you.
Well, my motto with the whole thing was just to try and keep it as simple as possible and to keep the focus on the content as much as possible and what people were saying and doing. And I think that in a way, it kind of, through necessity, made us, or at least me, just keep things as simple and as straightforward as possible, because, you can't do the really dramatic, beautifully lit interview with this amazing speaker, even though they need that. And, we want that for them. It's like, the editing does get trickier because it's just this one, unflattering camera angle, but, at least then it's focused on them and it's real. And I think it reflects that time too. And so it's kind of interesting. It's like, this was made in 2020. You can see it.
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, sure. And I think we feel that too from the film festival's perspective, is watching the trends of, these documentaries are coming in. We all know that was 2020. I mean, yeah, we noticed that. So, and Jamie, talk a little bit about the technical side of things. And you said that you were one-man banding it. And again, I'm assuming that means you had the camera, you were out, you were talking, doing all the editing and...
Yeah. I shot it, and then we just sort of put a lavalier, like a, wireless microphone on John. And, the thing with documentaries is you only get one shot. So, if you can't do it again, really. So and as a one person, you just got to shoot it and you got to keep going, sort of run and gun is what they call it sometimes. And a lot of it does take, it's just interesting editing and sort of trying to put the puzzle pieces together in a way that's, that's interesting. And you don't know what's necessarily what it's going to look like at the end when you're shooting it, or even when you're editing it. You sort of write it in the editing room. So you kind of have to get creative and just, wait for things to happen. There's a lot of stuff in the movie that, like, we had various cuts already completed before, certain things started to materialize, and then you have to go out and shoot some more and try to fit that all in. So yeah, it's like putting a real life jigsaw puzzle together, kind of.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even think of it from that perspective. So you have all this footage, and then you're trying to, okay, I have this, and I'll put this in here. The music and the storyboarding and all of that stuff, do you guys do you have that in mind going in? Is there somebody that comes in and helps you with that? And Ted, I'll go ahead and start with you, because you've got, this amazing aerial footage, and the music is always, so in line with what's going on the screen.
Well, so with our team, we had, some goals set out to what we were going to do. Of course, we got foiled by COVID. So, in the spring when that first happened, my friend Darren and I had a chance to just go out for a week. We found some private land, and we were, there was nobody around, and we could just film and, film the wildlife and time lapses and all. And so when we did finally get the opportunity to do our interviews, we get transcriptions made from those. And, Darren was primary, the script writer on that, and composing, our storyboards, our scripts from what we had in the interviews, with the approval and input from our producers and executive producer team there. But once it's handed off to me, then I just kind of run with it. And, it's kind of been more of an instinctual thing at that point. Conservation Northwest had this whole archive of the drone footage. So then that work wasn't mine. I can't take credit for that. But the editing was very much mine. And I took that and just try to follow a feeling and draw people in and draw them in with the emotional impact of the visuals with the music, and kind of lead them forward through the story and the narrative that way.
Shauna, you actually narrated your film. Did you know that going in? It sounds like you have a personal connection to the story. Did you know that you were gonna be the narrator, and how did that come about?
Only a little bit. I think it's tough because you plan and I did go in with a structure, but you also want to leave room for discovery. And or at least as I was interviewing with these amazing people who are studying this very niche topic and learning and kind of letting that sit with you, you have to have room to adjust as well. So, I mean, there were whole sections that didn't make it, and different moments that I scrapped, and then I had to kind of revise and make the story into more of my own. But all of the narration and all of the commentary and everything that I add into it is 100% what I believe, and what I believe about stories and how stories and world building has influenced me in my own thoughts. And then I would go back for another interview, or I would follow up and get more information, and that would steer me in another direction. So it was authentic, but I also went in with a plan,
Yeah, you have to adjust on the fly, I'm sure. Jamie, we talked a little bit about your editing background. So the music, obviously, it's from a musician's perspective. Was there anything in there that wasn't their music, their original music?
Yeah. Mostly, since it is a musical documentary, a lot of it is just like audio stems, like just the isolated guitar or whatever from the band's album. But we did at a certain point have a couple local Pittsburgh musicians come in and lay down some extra score. And then there's like a poem in the movie that John really likes that is this poem about hardware. And so that was sort of became its own sort of musical instrument of sorts. But yeah, we added in some extra music and stuff like that. And yeah, just tried to find a way to sort of make this, a history documentary interesting, as Ted said, you just do what you can to sort of make it engaging for the audience. You don't want to make a documentary as much as you want to make a movie, like you want to make it so people actually like it and get something out of it.
Right. It's always interesting, the name, kind of how people select wine sometimes. If you're not a wine connoisseur, you just go to the thing and look at the labels and say, oh, that's a pretty label. So I was always laughing about the titles of films and how people, why did you choose that to be the title? And then I look at the title and I go watch the film and I'm like, that just took me completely sideways. So everything hardware, I get in there and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, this is a band. Like, this is great, And I have nostalgia for hardware shops. So here in Boulder City, we have Ace Hardware on the main drag, and I am the least handiest person in the world. And there's nostalgia there. And this is an interesting twist on that hardware nostalgia and the history. That it was very compelling. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. The other thing I wanted to ask about, I'm curious how you guys select film festivals to submit. I'm curious the process of, the chicken or the egg? Did you create the documentary to submit? Were you driven to create the documentary and then thought, I need to submit? And what's your process in selecting film festivals? And then what does that mean for you professionally and personally? And Ted, I'll start with you.
Well, This Land is Part of Us was commissioned by the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and in partnership with Conservation Northwest. So there was a purpose. They were looking to do outreach. We didn't have any premiere, couldn't because of COVID, but their goal was to raise awareness for this overlooked ecosystem and all the wildlife and really a lot of endangered wildlife that's out there too, that really is underappreciated in our region. We've got Mount Rainier, which is stunningly beautiful. We've got the Olympic coast with grand rainforest and oceans, and driving through a land that a good part of the year is just kind of looks like it's all brown, and it just doesn't have that same kind of drama. We were looking to just raise an awareness with it, and to bring a little love out there for it and let people know how fantastic it really is, and that it's in danger from development, wildfires, climate change, pollution, any number of other things. So, in choosing a film festival, again, having been in the Damn Short Film Festival before, and I recall in 2019 that someone had a film in there about the Nevada landscape, and I remember that being received really well. So it was not hard for to me to resubmit to this year's damn short as well. So
I'm glad you did. Jamie,
me too.
festival selections?
Yeah, being an editor, and I've worked on shorts that have gone to lots of festivals. I think I've edited a few that were in this festival in previous years. So film festivals and Damn Short in particular are always on my mind. It did start off as like a promo video, so I mean it's very much like a Pittsburgh, sort of a love letter to Pittsburgh kind of thing. We did premiere it on PBS in Pittsburgh, but I always was interested in doing the film festival route. I think that's a great way to take this sort of East Coast story. And, so we focused on a lot of kind of Western film festivals like here in New Mexico and places like that. It seems to play pretty well out West.
Wild Wild West. Shauna?
I kind of thought about it topically, just if there were any festivals that were interested in the topics that my documentary presents, or kind of looking for it, looking for it. Because I think that especially when it's like so specific, not everything is for everyone. So I'm trying to find my audience in the film festival. And that's part of why I submitted here as well. But that's kind of what I'm thinking is like, where is my audience really? Like what festivals are they really where are my people at?
Sure. How did you guys get started in the film world, Shauna?
Well, I kind of started as a writer a little bit. And I was raised doing a lot of performing arts, like just kind of saturated and traveling with the musical theater groups and everything like that. So I kind of have that in my blood a little bit, and it just seemed like a natural evolution to start to make stories this way. My dad is a director. I was raised in Los Angeles, and so I guess I thought that it was a viable career somehow. But it is. But I think that I still draw on my background as a writer and just trying to always put the story first, always putting the emotional realities first, or trying to figure out what you're trying to say first. What is the most important thing that I'm putting out there? I think art kind of comes before entertainment, and when you're creating something that is art, it's entertaining. So that's kind of how I think about it, at least.
Jamie, how'd you get into the film world?
Well, I'm sort of also kind of from an artistic family. My mom was an actress for a while. And, I always just really loved movies and stuff like that. I remember one year she was trying to get rid of me for the summer. So I went to a filmmaking camp and just sort of like really loved it. And then I got into film school and got really, really into documentary filmmaking. I remember we watched, they showed us Harlan County, USA, which is an old doc from the 70s about like a coal miner strike in Kentucky. And that was also like a real kind of ragtag kind of run and gun kind of documentary. They just sort of showed up in this coal town and started shooting stuff and like looking for the story. And I always really loved that over narrative films. You can make documentaries pretty cheaply, but they can be really, really effective because they're about the real world. And I've always worked with musicians, back home in Pittsburgh. When I was living in Pittsburgh, I did a lot of stuff with bands. So I've always sort of loved documentaries, loved rock and roll music. So everything in hardware kind of covers both of those for me.
Nice. Ted, how'd you get into the film world?
Well, I've been doing video production for almost 20 years now. So I was working in photography before that. So, I learned the craft of filming and editing and creating and doing sound design and all that in the line of work, but was always very drawn to documentary films. Heroes being Werner Herzog and Errol Morris, and my name does not belong in that realm by any means, but I was certainly inspired by people like that. And but also just a natural curiosity that I have. I'm very interested in various things and always looking to learn more. And getting into the documentary film was just kind of a natural progression of marrying those interests. And I would always just want to know more. And and in the process of creating the film, you just learn so much, and you meet so many different people, and get so many different perspectives that you would otherwise never have. So for me, it's a process of discovery that really kind of drew me further into the whole realm.
About how long does it take for something like this to all come together? Are we talking years? Are we talking, you can put it on the shelf and you coming back to it? So, Shauna, how long was this process for you? And is that typical an average of, a documentary, or is it just?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's hard to say because I think that I started research for this from the time I started research to the time I finished. I think it was about a year. So I think I actually did do this in a year, but mine is not like an hour and a half. It's shorter, obviously. So
Thank goodness.
I think that I was doing kind of passive research for a couple months, and then I was working full time on it for probably half a year. Yeah.
Jamie?
Yeah, it's a couple years.
Years.
Documentaries, making a movie to begin with takes a really long time, but documentaries in particular, because you're not really sure what's coming next. And, like I said, I think I said earlier that there was certain things that happened in the movie that we thought we were done. And then, John finds out about this school in Florida that used to be the Binley Mansion. So it's like, okay, well, we're obviously going to go to Florida for a couple of days. So yeah, it just takes time for things to develop and kind of, get going. And it's an indie film, so it's just sort of me and John basically making a movie on our own. So it took a couple years, for everything to sort of come together.
Ted?
Well, I think making a film at the level that the three of us work at, there's a lot of work, and we need to play a lot of roles in doing that. So it does take time. And in my case, there was a lot of things that were driven by people's availability, biologists that we were working with, the seasonality. We were trying to get a lot of the wildlife while they were, they still had young, say birds, golden eagle on a nest, a bald eagle on a nest, and get it with opportunities of, in these arid lands out there in the shrub steppe that are brown, but for a brief time in the spring when there's rain, snow melt, they're really, really green and lush. And there is all the different plants and animals around that you see in the film. So that drove a lot of it. And then it just took a while to go through all that, to draw the story out from the interviews that we got, the interview, the editing process, going through the iterations. So it was a year-long process. My first documentary was a 2-year-long process, as the thing that I was documenting was undergoing. It was being constructed. So I think it can be the whole range, but in my particular case, this time around, this was a year-long project.
Are you working on multiple projects at the same time, or is it like, this is my project, I'm doing this?
Well, it can be either or. There really isn't one size fits all. This was pretty consuming during that year, but from my perspective, going into the pandemic, a lot of the normal work that I do, interviewing people, was not possible because we were all social distancing. Things were shut down. People didn't know what was going on. We were just learning about this virus, et cetera. So, a lot of it was just, just doing the best we could with what we had.
Yeah. Shauna, do you have a project that you're working on right now? What's next for you?
Yes, I feel like it's a blessing, and it's also a burden where it's good to have another project, but I was working on another creative idea while I was finishing this project. And I definitely have a few tricks up my sleeve, so I'll be working on those too.
And Jamie, are you working on something new?
Yeah, I just finished editing a feature-length documentary just like last week, so maybe that will be coming to damn
Oh.
short. Well, no, I guess because it's a feature, but yeah, I just finished up something. I'm kind of about to start editing a narrative, like a horror movie. So yeah, there's this and that kind of going on.
So you're all over the place genre wise, like that. You're not just, you
Yeah,
don't specialize in one thing.
I love the cinema.
That's fantastic. I'm always curious about, because we have, the shorts. What drew you to a short film versus doing a feature film? But it sounds like you do both. So what drew you to doing a short for this specific topic?
I think it just sort of, this film in particular, I think works better as a short story. You don't want to sort of, the film actually started off as a feature. There was a lot more, and we sort of had to end up cutting a lot of stuff out that sort of wasn't really important. It's just sort of dragged on, like the movie is as long as it needs to be, but if it's too long, that's a problem. So we had lots of other threads, like other people like John who are researching family history and, stuff like that. But in the end, it just sort of ended up being a short. I personally like shorts over features, actually. I like when they're like 20, 30 minutes, you kind of get in, get out, and, that, so.
Ted? Always shorts?
Well, no, I think in this particular case, we went for the length that we did in order to reach the audience that we were trying to reach. So we were in the outlets that we were going to be showing the film, here at film festivals, but also in like state parks in the state of Washington, visitor centers, and online, and just making it kind of a consumable length, so that it wasn't something so epic where you lose people after a while, and we were just able to tell the story, and kind of reach the point that we were trying to do, get our point across, and hopefully inspire people, but not drag it on to the point that we were going to lose our audience. So it was pretty much tailor-made for the audience that we were trying to reach.
Shauna, is this your first short? First of many?
This is my longest short. I think that I wanted to make it longer just because I'm so interested in the subject, and there's so many interesting things to explore in the subject that I could have gone deeper. But I think for the average person who is watching it, they can only track with so much, and they're only interested in so much. So, I wanted to go deeper into like some of the psychology behind, the illusion of independent agency and these paracosms that these young people have and all of those things. But I felt like I just really had to kind of touch on it and then connect it to the next thing and keep moving.
Are you going to take those topics and make more shorts and explore further?
I would love to. And, I would love to at some point kind of expand further on all of this, because I feel like it's really interdisciplinary, and it's actually, there's nothing out there in terms of like connecting these ideas. I mean, people kind of speculate about things, and I mean, it's all speculation, but you don't really have like any real research talking to these psychologists and connecting it to, people who work in publishing, and connecting that to, the authors, and then connecting that to the actual kids who read these books, and they're the ones at the end of the day all of it's for anyway. And,
yeah, there's more shorts there. I can see
there's more. Yeah,
there's more. There's definitely more.
There's more.
One of the things I'm missing the most this year, because we are virtual, is the filmmakers actually meeting each other, and our audience members meeting the filmmakers. It's always so fun to, we do a lot of after-hour events and mixers and whatnot, and I'm more excited about watching you guys make connections with each other than I am with making connections with myself. I like to see the heads get together and going off into the corner and chit-chatting. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot. We're hanging out in the Filmmaker Lounge, and you see each other. Do you have any questions for each other? Are you curious about, need answers, or hi, Ted, meet Jamie? Do you guys have, you know what I mean? Like, you're in the Filmmaker Lounge. What are you guys talking about?
Well, that's a great question. How you doing, Jamie? You know, a lot of it is just kind of comparing your experiences and how you got to the Damn Short Film Festival and where you're from and what your film's about and the different challenges you encountered in making it and you know, how you overcame those. And you know, so there's a lot of just kind of chatting about that. You know, again, when I was at the festival a few years back, I'd met a few other filmmakers, and we did have those interactions. And you know, I still stay in touch with them a little bit. So I'm missing being there in person myself. But
yeah, Jamie.
Yeah, you know, I'm always interested in how you know, other people sort of make movies and, you know, like what their craft is. I think since filmmaking is, you know, such a great art form, there's always sort of a different way to approach things. So yeah, you can really get sort of locked inside your own head sometimes. So it's always good to sort of, yeah, just watch other movies and talk to other people and just sort of see how other people accomplish things. And there's always something, I think, to learn from others.
Shauna, you're at the festival, Filmmaker Lounge, chatting it up.
Well, I feel like I'm such an in-person person that I'm still learning how to do the virtual networking, virtual chit chat type of deal, because I prefer so much the actual seeing someone's face, but I just like to get to know other people. Yeah, same.
On a personal level, more on a personal level as people than filmmakers. Yeah, I love the connections. We have such great stories that come out of the festival. Ted, you said you stayed in touch with some of the filmmakers, and I think we had an actor that met a filmmaker, a director, and now they're doing a film together. So I love those stories. But Ted, you brought up something interesting. Talk about an obstacle that you've faced and how you overcame that in this specific film.
In this film, well, so we were on a seasonal schedule. We began planning for our film about this time in 2020, you know, and then the pandemic came on. Well, you know, a lot of these birds, you know, for instance, there's the greater sage grouse, which is a rare and endangered bird. It's on the endangered species list. We have little pockets of them that live out in the shrub steppe areas out in Washington, and they do this really amazing mating ritual where the males have these big, you know,
they have those are the birds with the big things, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Sorry, I didn't want to laugh, but I've seen those.
Yeah.
I've seen those.
Great,
really,
you know,
funny.
the feathers are going and everything, and they do this at a very specific time. So we were kind of, you know, but the biologists were restricted. They, you know, this was at the time when the pandemic first came on. Everything was locked down. They couldn't go out, even though it was, you know, it's going outside, and you know, there's going to be no, you know, there's no danger from getting sick out there. You know, watching the grouse dance around in the fields and try to, you know, find mates. But, you know, so we were fighting the schedule that way. And just, and also, you know, it's a short period of time that, you know, all these flowers are in bloom. And so we kind of had to do some of these things on the sly when we really weren't supposed to be out there. But of course, there's nobody around. So, you know, it's nobody there to get us in trouble. But, you know, that time frame quickly goes away, and if you miss that, then we would have had to wait a whole nother year to get back out in the field and get some of these really amazing visual things that were part of the film.
Yeah, so your actors we're not moody actors and hungover from last night. They're just
they didn't take direction very well either.
I'm
they
sure.
were
Your topic is the challenge. Wow.
Yeah.
Jamie, any obstacle that you had to overcome making this one?
Yeah, time in general. As I said, you know, it took a lot of times for things to develop, and honestly, like I kind of burned myself out a couple times, and I sort of told John, like, I think the movie's over, and he'd say, no, like, give it another week, you know, like, give it another pass, you know, maybe something will materialize. And like I said, the thing in Florida happened, and you know, so also just sort of, you know, like threading the story together, you know, like all the different parts, and you know. It also was sort of a promo piece for John and his band. And, you know, it's this very personal thing. It's about his family history and stuff like that. Yeah. So there were like some minor arguments about, you know, like how certain voiceovers should go, or, you know, to not include certain aspects of the Binley history or anything like that. You know, when you make a movie, you're making it with other people. Even though I did sort of one-man band it, technically there's, you know, there's other voices in the room that, you know, it takes a while to sort of get everybody happy with the cut, I guess.
Oh, I bet. So it sounds like the documentary genre requires a lot of flexibility and adaptability to overcome.
Yeah, you
things.
know,
Yeah.
it's not really written until you start editing it, so it can
Right.
really go in any direction. And there's so many times that, you know, in like the final hour, you sort of make like a drastic change. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Shauna, you did touch a bit about COVID being a challenge just because you couldn't get access to the people you were interviewing. Was there anything else that kind of threw itself up as an obstacle that you were able to overcome?
Yeah, I think just trying to keep things interesting, even with like remote filming. And I think that I just learned to, you know, when in doubt, cut it out and really keep it short. And just, you know, don't try to work too hard to be interesting, but just let yourself, you know, it's interesting, and trust that your topic is interesting. Trust that your story is interesting, and, you know, be just yourself, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kids were easy to interview. They were great.
Oh my gosh, the kids, I love them. They were perfect. That was a little miracle that worked out to have them and to get permission to film them and everything. And they were like the perfect girls. They were like, oh yeah, I have an imaginary world. And they pull out a map of it, and all of their, like, you know, they have a language and histories and newspapers and all these things. And it's a really elaborate type of play.
Did you know them? Did you know them prior, or did somebody say, oh, I know these girls, you have to talk to them?
They were a friend of a friend. So my friend said, oh, she like volunteers at a church or something. And they were her, like, she knew this family. And she said, these girls are so imaginative. You have to interview these girls. And they were really perfect, especially because it is so rare. It's about 12% of all kids have an imaginary world, and especially one like that where it's they have like artifacts and things.
Yeah, they were
very rare.
Yeah, my son was definitely not one of those 12%. Jamie, where's the band now? How are they doing?
Good. They're in Pittsburgh. It's sort of a revolving door with, you know, like people kind of come in and out. It's a very sort of laissez-faire thing. So every time you see the band, it's kind of like a different lineup. John hosts, like, I think monthly, it's called the Honky Tonk Jukebox. It's kind of like, you know, a bunch of Pittsburgh musicians get together and they sort of like play covers, and it's kind of like, you know, like sort of like Prairie Home Companion kind of situation. It's a fun like review kind of thing. So yeah, if you like the music in the film, you can check out Binley Hardware Company on Spotify, or look up John Binley on Facebook or whatever. He's always doing something.
Love it. All right, guys, I think that is a wrap. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys, and it sounds like I'm welcoming you back since you've been fans and friends of the festival over the years. I do want to remind everybody to vote. I want to remind, sorry, no voting. Voting's over. What time is it? Oh my gosh, it's already 3. Okay, sorry, no more voting. Voting's closed. We're tallying up. The award ceremony is going to be later tonight at 7 p.m. And you can find these Q&As and our other live streams on YouTube forever. So check us out. Thanks, guys.
Whenever I'm with you, I am alright. There's something about the way you make me feel inside. I'm counting down the days till we fly away, heading to the sun, only you and me.